Have you ever imagined spending a whole night in an abandoned house in the middle of a dense forest where no one lives? What if I told you that someone actually did it? This story happened with David, who decided to test his courage and spend a whole night inside an old house, abandoned for 100 years, located deep in a dense forest where there was no trace of human life. Rumors were circulating about this place. It was said that it was haunted, and that whoever entered it might not come out the same way he entered. But David did not believe in superstitions, and he was excited to go himself. At sunset, David carried his bag full of food and everything he needed, and walked between the dense trees until he reached that very old house. Its windows were broken, and the walls were covered with a layer of moss and dust. And when he pushed the door, the atmosphere inside was unnaturally cold, although the weather outside was not. The furniture was covered in dust, and the air was saturated with the smell of dampness and mold. David began to tour the house, but he felt that something was wrong. Sometimes he heard strange noises, rustling in the ceiling, or faint whispers that he couldn't pinpoint their source. As time passed, David began to feel uneasy. The atmosphere seemed heavier, as if someone was watching him. He ignored his feeling and continued exploring the rooms. Suddenly, he heard clear footsteps behind him, and when he turned around, he found nothing. His heart was beating fast, but logic overcame his fear, and he convinced himself that they were just illusions. He didn't leave the house. He decided to sit in one of the rooms to rest. But at midnight, something happened that made him realize that he wasn't alone in the house. The door to the room opened slowly, as if it was opening by itself, and then he heard a whispering voice calling his name. This time it wasn't just a voice in his head. It was completely real. He froze in place, not knowing whether to get up to face the unknown or run away. But before he could decide, the lights went out. At that moment, he felt a cold hand touch his shoulder. He jumped up screaming and quickly turned on the light. But he didn't see anyone. He felt that the place was rejecting his presence, and that what was living here didn't want a guest. He hurriedly gathered his equipment and ran out of the house, not daring to look back. When he got away from the place, he turned to see if something was following him, and there he saw a scene he would never forget. From the window of the upper floor, there was a shadow, a mysterious entity looking directly at him. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just stared at him with eyes that seemed to be looking into his soul. At that moment, David realized that he was lucky to have gotten out of there alive. Since that day, David has never returned to that house, and he has never spoken about what happened to him. But he only says one thing: there are places we shouldn't enter and things we shouldn't try to understand. Oh, and thus our story ends. But is it really the end? No. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one, because it will be more mysterious. Goodbye, my friends.